Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are jumping straight into one of the absolutely wildest social experiments recently caught on camera. Picture this. You strand 100 people in the middle of the absolute wilderness. The stakes? A massive $250,000 prize, split among whoever is left standing when help finally arrives. But the real genius here is how they divided these 100 people. It created a literal laboratory for studying human endurance, and honestly, the results are going to completely surprise you. Because it all boils down to this one incredible question. Who survives longer? On one side, you have 50 hardcore survival experts. These are people dropped into the wild with absolutely nothing but the clothes on their backs. And on the other side, 50 complete amateurs. We're talking people who have never camped a single day in their lives, but they were given a blank check at a sporting goods store to buy whatever they thought they needed.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1, the setup. Decades of experience versus limitless gear.
The contrast right out of the gate is just massive. The blue team, the experts, brought raw, unfiltered knowledge to the table. Some of these folks literally do this for fun. Actually, scratch that. They spend months out in the woods surviving. But they packed zero gear, figuring they needed to be ready for any random climate. Then you have the red team, the amateurs. They brought pure, unchecked consumer power. I'm talking kids' pop-up tents, huge tarps, miles of rope, and giant 24 packs of bottled water. Now, you might be thinking the amateurs would be terrified, right? Nope. They were riding this hilarious wave of blind confidence. When someone asked if they could beat the professionals, one amateur just flat out said, "We don't care. We're professionals in our own way." But, the wilderness doesn't really care about your shopping spree. Yet, in a total twist of irony, the very first two people to tap out and go home, they actually came from the expert blue team. No way, right? One of them was a 66-year-old with a double knee replacement who just couldn't handle sleeping on the freezing ground. That initial shock brings us right to Section 2, shelter, skills versus supplies.
Now, what's really interesting here is how they tackled that very first freezing night. The red team just instantly popped up their store-bought tents and basically slept outside in style. Super easy. But the blue team? They had to rely entirely on technique. They burned massive amounts of energy building these incredibly labor-intensive debris shelters, piling on leaves a foot thick just to create enough natural insulation so they wouldn't freeze. But here's the thing, that backbreaking work paid off immediately. By the very next morning, the blue team's morale was off the charts. They woke up totally rested, completely warm, and full of energy. One expert even bragged that their pile of leaves was better than the Four Seasons. They were absolutely convinced that their structural know-how would easily outlast those flimsy pop-up tents once real weather hit. Let's keep moving. Section 3, food. Foraging versus rationing. Because, well, you can't survive on a good night's sleep alone. Watching how each camp got their calories is absolutely fascinating. The blue team, led by this survivalist named Seth, essentially turned the forest into a grocery store. They held actual foraging classes to find edible trail nibbles and immediately started building stick traps for the river. The red team? Oh man, they spent their first 2 days absolutely destroying their store-bought party mix, just snacking away. When that ran out, they busted out their fancy fishing gear and only managed to catch literal trash out of the water. So the crucial point is, extreme hunger hit the amateurs like a freight train. To survive, the red team was forced to lock down a brutally strict community pantry. They were rationing out the bare minimum from hidden food caches that were provided for them. I mean, listen to this quote from one contestant. "I'm used to eating 6 eggs in the morning, and now I'm just eating an apple." 6. That's how many early eliminations the red team suffered directly from the sheer shock of starvation. The physical toll was just brutal. They were out there longing for a Waffle House buffet and a simple milkshake, and it was just too much. As their energy plummeted, so did their numbers. But while the amateurs are struggling with physical hunger, the experts are battling a completely different monster. That brings us to Section 4, the cost of ego and team dynamics. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate irony of the whole show. The amateurs actually recognized how clueless they were, so they banded together. They shared resources, appointed designated chefs, and gave each other tons of emotional support. But the experts? You essentially dropped 50 Type A control freaks into the woods who all thought their way was the only way. They fractured over control issues, the communication broke down, and get this, some of them even created secret potato stashes to hoard food from their own team. The wilderness wasn't destroying the blue team. They were destroying each other.
Their egos sparked waves of self-eliminations. One expert perfectly summed it up right before quitting, saying, "Never been in a game where I can't trust my own teammates." They had every technical skill needed to survive the wild, but absolutely zero patience to survive each other. Which sets the perfect stage for Section 5, the ultimate temptation task. Extreme starvation meets extreme temptation. Picture this. Both teams are suddenly presented with 50 cans of Feastables food. We're talking peanut butter cups, beef, corn, peas, completely dangled right in front of these starving people. And the challenge was totally brutal. Whichever team returns the most unopened cans after 72 hours wins a massive reward. But if they tie, neither wins anything. How they handled this is so telling. The red team knew they were starving, and they didn't trust their own willpower for a second. So they literally buried the cans in the dirt to enforce strict discipline. Out of sight, out of mind. The blue team, on the other hand, kept the cans completely visible. They spent 3 days agonizing and salivating over the milk chocolate and beef, pushing their willpower to the absolute brink. I mean, imagine 72 hours of agonizing physical hunger. Do you think you could resist? Well, here's the crazy part. The blue team returns all 50 cans. The red team returns all 50 cans. They both passed flawlessly. But remember that rule? A tie means absolutely nothing. Zero. The psychological devastation of starving yourself for 3 days for literally no reward was a massive gut punch. It instantly caused 3 angry members of the amateur team to just quit on the spot. Let's move to Section 6 and see how this builds to the breaking point, the storm. Day 14, morale is at rock bottom, and then the skies just open up. And we're not talking about a passing shower here. This was 5 uninterrupted hours of torrential, relentless rain that absolutely flooded both camps. Clothes, socks, sleeping bags, everything was soaked. And then, overnight, the temperature plummeted, leaving a thick, freezing layer of frost on the trees by morning. The aftermath was just brutal. Fire pits were totally flooded out. Airplane chairs they had left outside were literally frozen solid. This terrifying plunge in temperature acted as the ultimate brutal equalizer. It didn't matter if you were an expert or an amateur, the storm tore through everyone's resolve equally, leading to 6 red team tapouts and 2 blue team tapouts in rapid succession. And that brings us to our conclusion: mind over matter. Because the contrast between these two teams teaches us something really profound. If there's one huge takeaway from this whole explainer, it's this. Technical wilderness skills are really only half the battle. The beautiful irony of this entire experiment is that the experts' vast knowledge was constantly neutralized by their own egos, their inability to compromise, and their selfishness. Meanwhile, the amateurs' complete lack of technical skills was completely offset by their community sharing, smart resource management, and emotional support. It really leaves us with a fascinating question to end on. When you're stripped of all your modern comforts, pushed to the absolute brink of starvation, and battered by the elements, is true survival really about mastering the wild? Or is it, at the end of the day, about mastering ourselves? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.